2 more games are left in the 2019 World Series. The season is almost over, and I probably should have made this video before the World Series started, but you're getting it now because the World Series content, it's not going to be back for a while once it's done. As you can tell from the title of today's video, I'm going to be ranking the last 10 World Series from 1 to 10. Now, I know I normally tell you like, comment, subscribe, follow my Twitter, Instagram, but I actually got something else a little bit more to tell you. I normally tell you 5 uploads a week. I only gave you 4 last week, so I owe you something. So actually, if you go over to my Instagram, GiraffeNeckMarc, links in the description, I'm going to be doing a giveaway over there for a 59.50 hat of your choice. So like one of these, I know I pulled out a Pirates hat and I'm a Mets fan, but this is what was near me right now. But I feel like I owe you guys something, so if you want a chance to win a 59.50 fitted hat of your choice, head on over to my Instagram, GiraffeNeckMarc, drop me a follow, and keep an eye out for my next post. So that's going to be it for the shameless plugging today. We're going to get right into the beef of the video. Starting it off with my least favorite World Series of the last 10 years, the 2012 World Series. The 2012 World Series, let's be honest, it was a bit of a snooze fest. The Giants absolutely dominated, sweeping the Tigers 4-0. It actually should have been a pretty good competition. The Tigers had a nice team, but they laid a big ol' egg in the World Series. This World Series, of course, was known for getting off to a hot start where Pablo Sandoval hit 3 home runs in one game. And after that, the rest of the series, it was pretty much dominated by pitching. Game 2 and 3, the Giants won 2-0 over the Tigers. Madison Bumgarner, Ryan Vogelsong, strong pitching performances. And then Game 4, I guess, was an exciting end to the World Series where the Giants won the game in the top of the 10th inning when Marco Scuro hit a line drive into center field and scored Ryan Terrio. Overall, Giants dominated this series. There wasn't much to watch. Coming up at number 9, we have the 2010 World Series again between the San Francisco Giants and the Texas Rangers. This was the Giants' dominant period. This is when they were building their dynasty. And again, this series was just a really easy one for the Giants, not super exciting. Similar to the Tigers, the Rangers had an absolutely loaded team, but they just couldn't get over the hump and win the World Series. Edgar Renteria for the San Francisco Giants was the MVP, having a great series. And similar to the 2012 World Series, it just really wasn't close. The Giants felt like they had control in every single game, except the one game that they lost to the Rangers, and even then that was close, a 4-2 loss in Game 3. But they dominated Game 1, winning 11-7, and the Rangers only scored 3 runs in the last inning to make it closer. Game 2, again, domination by the Giants, 9-0. Matt Cain went off, 4-hitter. Game 4, dominated again. Madison Bumgarner pitched that game, shutout. He was a rookie. This is where he started his World Series ascension. And then Game 5 again, late scoring in the 7th inning, but the Giants won 3-1. Just wasn't exciting to me. At number 8, we have the 2018 World Series from last season between the Red Sox and the Dodgers, where the Red Sox came out victorious 4-1. I feel like this series gets a little bit overhyped because besides Game 3 and Game 4, there wasn't a whole lot of excitement in this series unless you were a fan of one of these teams. And even then, Game 3, about 5 hours of that 7-hour game was just not great. Game 4 was a fantastic game with the Red Sox mounting a super late comeback, scoring all 9 of their runs in the last 3 innings, but Game 1 was pretty straightforward with the Red Sox winning easily. Game 2 again, the Red Sox got out to an early lead, lost it, but then won it back in the 5th. And then Game 5, the Red Sox got the lead from the start and never gave it up. I think it was still a good World Series, just not one of my favorites. The 7th best World Series of the last 10 years is going to be the 2009 World Series between the New York Yankees and the Phillies. Yes, this is indeed my worst nightmare. Yankees won this World Series 4-2 over Philadelphia. Hideki Matsui, Godzilla, being the MVP. He had a great series, but overall, maybe it's just because I dislike these two teams, but I don't remember really caring that much about this World Series, which is why it falls lower on this list for me. I will say there was a little more back and forth than a lot of the series I previously mentioned, but overall for me, I don't know, it just lacked something. I'll admit, it's definitely my bias playing a factor here, like 2 teams I dislike, but it just didn't get me going. Like Game 1, dominated by the Phillies. Game 2, the Yankees won it pretty easily. Game 3 was a bit of a better game, but again, the Yankees got out to an early lead and kept it. Game 4, I'll definitely give credit, that was the best game of the series with the Yankees scoring 3 runs in the 9th to win the game. And while Game 5 and 6 had a decent amount of scoring, it just really wasn't going back and forth for me. That's why it falls at number 7 on my list. Coming in at number 6, ooh, here we go. We got the 2015 World Series between the Kansas City Royals and the New York Mets. Now, before you say anything, you can't call bias on this one. The Mets didn't even win it. They lost. But I will say the games, they were pretty exciting. Now, maybe that's because I was a Met fan and I was at the games, but I thought this was a fairly decent series, especially if you dislike the Mets. Like, this was a great series if you hate us. Game 1, we know it started off crazy with Alcides Escobar hitting an inside the park home run because Yoenis Cespedes forgot how to catch a baseball. But then the Mets came back and then they blew it in the 14th inning. Game 2, bad. Real bad. We got destroyed. But then Game 3, they're back in New York and Syndergaard sets the tone early, whizzing a fastball right by Alcides Escobar. David Wright hit a home run. Like, that's one of my favorite David Wright moments. And then Game 4 came, and again, the Mets blew it late in the game. And then, of course, as we know, Game 5 went into the 9th inning with the Mets with the lead, and then Matt Harvey happened, and the Mets happened, and they blew it in the 12th inning. So as a Mets fan, yes, terrible for me. It was a nightmare. But I think as a general fan of baseball, you got a fairly entertaining series. Starting off our top 5, we're gonna go to the 2013 World Series between the Boston Red Sox and the St. Louis Cardinals. The Red Sox won the series 4-2 over St. Louis, with David Ortiz, Big Papi, being the MVP. Boston dominated Game 1, but then St. Louis came right back in Game 2, won it, won Game 3, had the series lead 2-1. Boston tied it up the next game. They then took game 5. You had big home runs from guys like Johnny Gomes, David Ortiz, Stephen Drew. You got good pitching performances from John Lackey, John Lester. Michael Wacha, when he was good, even pitched well. I thought this was a really entertaining series to watch back and forth, and just two of the great teams of the last decade battling it out. I really enjoyed watching this series. Plus, you had the narrative of the Red Sox winning it for the Boston Marathon bombing. It just had a magical feeling around it, which is why it gets into the top 5 for me, right at number 5. At number 4, this one was actually one of my favorite World Series until, well, the last couple years. We're talking about the 2014 World Series between the Giants and the Royals, where the Giants won 4 games to 3. Mad Bum MVP, we know how he just absolutely went off in this series. This is the end of the Giants dynasty, by the way. But this series, from an entertainment standpoint, was fantastic. I was a freshman in college when this was going on. I remember watching this with my roommate and suite mates. Every game felt like it was up for grabs. They were going back and forth. It was really good baseball. Now, game 1, San Francisco got an early lead, never gave it up. They won 7-1. Game 2, Kansas City took it right back with a 7-2 win themselves. But then we get into game 3, and that's when it starts getting interesting. Game 3, we had a matchup of Jeremy Guthrie versus Tim Hudson. Go figure. You probably never thought you'd hear that in a World Series. But it was a really good game with the Royals getting out to an early lead. They then grab a 3-run lead in the 6th inning, and the Giants come back immediately and score 2. And it just felt like at any moment in the game, the Giants could have came back. Game 4, San Francisco got out to an early lead. Then the Royals dropped 4 in the 3rd inning. Giants responded. And then 5, 6, 7, they dropped 2, 3, and 4 runs to take an 11-4 lead over Kansas City. With the series at 2 games apiece, the Giants turned to Madison Bumgarner again in game 5. And I mean, it's Mad Bum. You know how he's going to do. The Giants win 5-0, only gave up 4 hits. And then game 6, the Royals were like, oh yeah, hold on one second, 10-0. How about that, Giants? Yordano Ventura, RIP, had a fantastic game on the mound, pitched it in memory of Oscar Taveras, who died only a few days earlier. And then game 7, this is the one that everyone remembers. The Giants scored 2 runs in the 1st inning off Jeremy Guthrie, and Kansas City answers immediately back. You're thinking the Kansas City Royals are about to win this World Series. They got all the momentum. But then in the 4th inning, Michael Morse steps up to the plate, broken bat single. Pablo Sandoval scores. They get a 3-2 lead. And then they go to Mad Bum in the 5th inning, and the rest is history. He retired 14 straight batters. This World Series just was a really exciting one for me to watch as a fan of just baseball. I think it definitely deserves to be in the top 5. At the number 3 spot in today's video, we're going to go with the 2017 World Series between the Houston Astros and the Los Angeles Dodgers, where the Astros won the World Series 4 games to 3, George Springer being the MVP. What a World Series he had. This was a battle of the best team from the American League versus the best team in the National League. This is who everybody wanted to see in 2017, and they did not let us down. Game 1 saw a Dodgers victory. Clayton Kershaw pitching strong in the playoffs, something we hadn't seen. 11 strikeouts, 7 innings. Game 2 was a fantastic game with Houston making a late comeback in the 8th, 9th, and scoring 4 runs in the 10th and 11th to get the 7-6 win. Game 3 back in Houston, out to an early lead. They kept it the entire game, won 5-3. Game 4, LA scored 5 in the 9th inning to get a 6-2 win over Houston. And then we have the magical Game 5 that everyone remembers. Crazy amount of back and forth, a lot of big home runs, incredible rallies, great innings. Went into extra innings where the Astros eventually won it 13-12. One of the best baseball games I've ever watched. Seriously, like, go back and watch that game if you haven't seen it. It's so good. Game 6, Los Angeles won it easily. And then Game 7, Houston got the lead early, scoring 5 runs in the first 2 innings, and they never let go of it, winning the World Series in 7 games. This was such a good World Series. For the second best World Series in the last 10 years, we have the 2011 World Series between the St. Louis Cardinals and the Texas Rangers, better known as the David Freese series, where the Cardinals won in 7 games, 4 games to 3. Almost every game except for Game 3 was a close one, where the Cardinals just went off. Albert Pujols hitting 3 home runs in 1 game. But the real game we want to talk about is Game 6, of course, the David Freese game. The Rangers were 1 out away, 1 strike away from winning the World Series, where David Freese hits a triple over the head of Nelson Cruz, who plays a ball terribly in right field. You had Josh Hamilton hitting a 2-run homer in the top of the 10th. You thought the game was over, but the Cardinals rallied back. Lance Berkman with a big hit, and then of course he steps up in the 11th inning, hits a walk-off homer to push them into Game 7, and they win Game 7 6-2 fairly easily. This was an absolutely phenomenal World Series. The legend of David Freese was born. One of the more memorable World Series of all time, let alone the last 10 years. And then of course, the best World Series of the last 10 years has to be the 2016 World Series between the Chicago Cubs and the Cleveland Indians. Not only because the Cubs broke the 108-year World Series drought, but because Game 7 was unbelievable. That's literally carrying the series, I don't care. Obviously, the Chicago Cubs won this series, as I previously mentioned, 4 games to 3 in 7 games, but they came back from a 3-1 deficit against the Indians. Yes, the Indians blew a 3-1 lead in the World Series. The beginning of the series was dominated by pitching. Corey Kluber was shutting out the Cubs, dominating them. Jake Arrieta doing the same on the Chicago side. Game 3, Kyle Hendricks on the mound for Chicago. Josh Tomlin Cleveland for Cleveland. You think maybe a little high scoring? Nope, ended 1-0, Cleveland winning. And then game 4, a 7-2 victory by Cleveland. Home runs from Carlos Santana and Jason Kipnis. You thought the series was over. The Cubs looked defeated, but boy, did they come back. Game 5, Cubs won the game 3-2. RBIs from Chris Bryant, Addison Russell, David Ross. Game 6, they smacked the Indians 9-3. Wasn't even close. And then there's game 7, the one we talked about at the beginning. Started off the game with Dexter Fowler with a leadoff home run. Cleveland responded back in the 3rd. Cubs score 4 more runs in the next 2 innings. Cleveland scores 2. David Ross hit a big home run in the 6th to help one of the errors he made. Chapman comes in the 8th inning facing Rajai Davis and gives up a 3-run home run down the line to the most unlikely of heroes. Rajai Davis was having a terrible postseason, not known for his bat, and he goes yard off Chapman. The game was tied at 6 after 9 innings, and then there was a 17-minute rain delay going into the 10th, where in the 10th, the Cubs scored 2 runs, and with a 2-run lead, Rajai Davis stepped up to the plate again in the bottom of the 10th inning and hits a line drive into center field, making a 1-run game. Mike Montgomery comes in to get the final out. He gets Michael Martinez to ground out to Chris Bryant, throws it to Anthony Rizzo. Cubs are the World Series champion, breaking a 108-year World Series drought. So those are my rankings for the best World Series in the last 10 years. I'd love to know what you guys think about it down in the comment section below. Which one's your favorite? Which one's your least favorite? I'd love to hear what you have to say down below. Remember to leave a like on the video if you did enjoy it, as well as subscribing to the channel if you love baseball content. Remember to check out my Instagram. I'm doing a giveaway for a 5950 fitted hat, new era. If you want one, go check out the Insta. We're giving one away. And I guess to end it here, we've got 2 more games of the 2019 season left. The Astros have the 3-2 lead over the Washington Nationals. I think they take it in game 6. I don't think we see a game 7, but this series has been great. It's been full of so many surprises. I honestly wouldn't be shocked if the Nationals come back and win it. I mean, the away team has won every game. When does that happen? On that note, I'm gonna end the video here. You guys know the drill. YouTube recommends you watch this video, as well as this is my most recent upload, so click through those if you have not yet seen them. Thank you so much for watching today's video, guys. I really do appreciate you, and I will see you all tomorrow for a quiz.